Hello everyone, welcome to the Deep Developer YouTube channel. So in the previous video we have talked about Spring Framework 7 latest new features. I have explained you about the top 5 major features with some real life use cases. So this is the second videos of this Spring Boot 4 new features tutorial series where we will be going through 9 major features of the Spring Boot. Spring Boot is what we actually use day by day. So this is what we start our project with, and this is what going into Docker. Then finally it's run into the productions. So any changes in the Spring Boot directly affect how we work as an backend developer. So in this particular video, instead of explaining the documentations, I will explain how the Spring Boot development feels difference after this release and why this major 9 changes matter in the real project. So let's start with the video. So before going ahead with the video, I would request to please subscribe to the channel where I make videos on Java, Spring Boot, microservices, REST API development. And as you know, this is the second videos of this series. I would request you to go through all the videos on this particular series, where in the coming videos I will be explaining each and every features with a real life project as well. Let's start with our first features, which is like a modularized auto configurations. So earlier, the Spring Boot auto configuration was very powerful. We know that, but the jar is also heavy. So even a small applications was carrying configuration logic for many things which we never being used. So as a developer, we don't think too much about, because as until it is everything is working. But if you work in a large organization, so this started becoming a really issue. So it slow down the startup time, high memory uses, and a very confusing like dependency graph. So in the Spring Boot 4 fixes this. So auto configuration is now no longer an issue. So it is broken down like major configurations. It is broken down into smaller modules, and only that modules you needed in your application as per your need. So what this means for you is simple, like your application like start faster, consume less memory, and easier to debug when something goes wrong. So all these particular documentations you can get it from the official website and from the release note as well. I'll put everything on the descriptions. So let's go to the next features, which is like clean and predictable starter. So this is the another changes you will feel over time is how the Spring Boot starter behaves. So earlier starter felt like a magic. So you add one dependency as you said, and many things comes along automatically. So that is not that much suitable, but is also meant developers often had no idea what libraries are actually being used. So in the Spring Boot 4, the starter are much more disciplined. Like each starter has clear responsibilities and pull only when you are required. So this make like dependency management cleaner, the security scanner is simple, and upgrades less painful. So Spring Boot is slowly moving moving to be controlled by the developer depending upon the requirement. So this is the much more similarities between the features 1 features 2. All these things I will be explaining in my upcoming videos in depth analysis with the real life project as well. So keep subscribe to the channel as well. The features 3 is strict configuration validations. So now let's talk about the configurations. There's something that can cause production issue for almost every Spring developer has faced this issue. So if we see in the current even in the Spring Boot 4 also, in the current Spring Boot 3, if we made a simple type error or the typo error in the application.properties file or the application.oml file, the Spring Boot often ignore it silently, and this application would start fine but behave incorrectly later in during the productions. And Spring Boot 4 totally changes this behavior. The configuration is now validated much more strictly. like unknown properties. So if we used any type of error in the application or properties file, so those unknown properties are flagged early, and if there is any deprecated properties are there, they are reported clearly, and ID will tell that to you. So instead of finding configuration bugs in the productions, you catch them while the development. So this is the really useful features that they have uh, improved. So it saves a lot of debugging time in the real life project. Fourth feature is that operations fast actuator. So in the Spring Boot 4, Actuator is now no longer treated as an optional add-on. So it treated as an core part of the applications. Like modern applications don't just need to be run, as we know, like they are scalable and manageable in the future time. So Spring Boot 4 assumes the your application sometimes it yeah, of course it will be running in the any Kubernetes or any cloud environment. So because of this, the actuator endpoints are now like better structures and more production friendly. Now this Spring Boot 4 is clearly saying like production is now not an optional, like anyhow is you will be planning in some days to deploy any on any cloud environments. So next feature is that opinionated observability. So earlier the setting up observability requires many decision and lot of configuration. Like because of that, like many teams delay it until any like issue comes. Like in this Spring Boot force, it's removed most of this dependency. So it provide a sensible default for matrices, tracing purpose, and any context propagations. So you don't need to be an observability expert at one day. The Spring Boot gives as an like it's a strong baseline to you. So when something goes wrong in the productions, then you already had some useful data to showcase and to do the debugging. Next feature is improve container and Buildpack support. So almost every Spring Boot application does run inside a container or any we can say any cloud environment. So earlier many teams wrote some complex Docker files code and struggling with the image size, and this slow down the CI pipeline as well. So Spring Boot 4 improves that container support by optimizing image layering and build pack behavior. So this result is faster builds and better caching and the smaller images. The key benefit here is that you can create a production ready container without being a Docker specialist. The seventh feature is that better native image readiness. So many teams wants like faster startup time and lower memory usage, especially for serverless or the cost sensitive workload. So Spring Boot 4 improve this ahead of time processing and reduce the reflections heavy behavior and making native images more practical and the less painful. Next feature is that faster and the cleaner testing experience. So testing large Spring Boot applications is being always challenging. So big tests also often taken long time to run and slow down like pipelines. So Spring Boot 4 improve this test context. The features 9 is that hardened security default. So security is one of the most important concerns in a application. So when the Spring Boot 4, where Spring Boot 4 is quietly improving these things. So earlier managing endpoints or the internal features were sometimes exposed unintentionally, and the Spring Boot 4 like make it more sensitive that endpoint are protected by default. So now you explicitly decide what should be exposed, and that's come to the end of the video. So in this video we cover all the Spring Boot 4 new features. In the upcoming videos I will be making a production ready applications, and I will be explaining each of the features in a detailed. So please subscribe to the channel, and if you have any feedback you can provide in the comment section. Thank you for watching the video.